thoughts, and opinions expressed in this video are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Control Plus Indie and its owner. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The Control Plus Indie name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. All information, images, videos, or any multimedia content shown in this show is copyrighted, all rights reserved for Greylock Studio and its participants.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new Control Indie episode. Today we have a very special guest, a person who managed to create and develop one of the most powerful video games of the last couple of years, with more than 4,000 reviews on Steam with his first person shooter, Severed Steel, and with an upcoming project called Echo Nova. Please welcome to the show, Matt Larrabee. So Matt, we want to know you as a person before we start talking about the game development. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Me as a person, been into running a lot recently. I try to run, exercise every day. I'm not really formally trained in game development. I went to school for psychology. And was a teacher for many years. And always been a gamer. You know, like my dad let me play Doom way before it was appropriate for a kid to play Doom. I must have been like 8 or something like that. Always loved games, always loved first-person shooters, always loved computers. So I kind of dabbled in some modding and game development on the side, which, through the power of social media, like posting clips and some stuff I made, it sort of snowballed over the years into a full-time game dev career. And that's how I got to where I am.
Matt, what drives your passion for creating video games? Not just the ones you are working on now, but in general.
I guess there's 2 reasons I make games. I mean, the first is that just in terms of a job, I get to set my own schedule, do my own thing, I'm my own boss. So I'm very happy as an indie dev. I don't know if I would love working for a big studio, like whatever, EA, or even, I don't even know if I'd like working for a small indie dev studio or I wasn't the boss. I like doing my thing, wake up when I want, sleep when I want, all that fun stuff. But the second thing, the big reason I got into game development is I do want to one day I want to make an open world RPG. That's my long-term target. And in some ways I do see Severed Steel and Echo Nova. They're games that I love, but they're kind of stepping stones onto this final ultimate goal. So that's sort of my long-term creative vision. It might be my next project. Maybe I'll find that I'm not quite ready for it yet. But that's what keeps me going.
We know that Severed Steel has a few influences, some a little on the nose like the Half-Life mod The Specialist, or maybe the Matrix 1 lobby shootout scene. Maybe some a little more far-fetched like Ghost in the Shell. But how do you approach game design and how do you get ideas for your projects?
Yeah, honestly, I stumble. It's a lot of stumbling around in the dark and trying different things. When I started Echo Nova, I didn't go into it thinking I'm gonna make a game with a hoverboard and a grappling hook. I don't even know how those things came to be. It just kind of comes through I play the game for a bit. I'm what's missing? What would feel fun? And then I'll get an idea. I want to go faster. Well, how can I go faster? It's games have sprinting, but sprinting's kind of boring and overplayed. Yeah. And then maybe an idea hoverboard will come. It just kind of comes to me. Yeah, I wish I had a good answer, but I'm not a visionary. I don't sit down. I never once sat down and thought this is Echo Nova. It's step by step. What would be fun? What would be interesting? And just kind of building on that.
So creating game features involves a lot of testing and iterative gameplay development, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is just like finding it's like maybe like sanding down a piece of like rough wood. Like you find like friction points. Yeah, so like a friction point for Severed Steel was like for the longest time in Severed Steel, you had to look at a gun and press a button to pick it up.
Yeah.
Something like that. And that was just like a friction point. And a lot of it is feedback. Like the having to pick up a gun was something I actually liked a lot, but a playtester said that like it really kills the flow. What if it just automatically got picked up? And my first thought was like, I don't know about that. Then I tried it, and like now I can't imagine the game without it. At least for new players, some pro players on the Discord like to turn it off because they do like the challenge of having to like look at a weapon and try to grab it. So it is a toggle. But yeah, that is one example of like as the game development goes on, just like what's not fun, what's fun, patching it up as you go.
With your latest game about to be released, could you explain your development process from the initial idea to the launch?
Yeah, I mean, it was very different for Severed Steel and Echo Point Nova. For Severed Steel, my goal was just like, I want to make a game. Like, I just got to get a game out there. And I did first-person shooter because it's a genre I know very well, and it's a genre that Unreal Engine, the toolset I was familiar with, had a lot of tools to help me make. And yeah, I guess just like design, like for that, I just took the events as they came. Like, I was just like, all right, well, like I worked on the first-person shooter concept until it was cool enough to show off, and then I'm like, well, I guess like I'm supposed to market my game, like that's what game developers are supposed to do. So then I posted clips, and then publishers started reaching out to me, and then I was like, oh, I guess I could have a publisher. And then I started talking to them, found someone to do it, and then they're like, well, this could be multi-platform. I'm like, okay, I guess we'll do multi-platform. So yeah, it's just kind of picking up opportunities as they come along. For Echo Point Nova, I did it. I went into it thinking I do want to make something open world. I didn't know if it was going to be a shooter or not. I started playing with like making like an open world in Unreal Engine, and then eventually dawned on me that like, well, it should probably be a shooter because I didn't quite think I was at the skill level for like a full-on RPG where like you do quests and like there's like quests and there's non-hostile NPCs and there's like a rich environment you can interact with. So it was just a shooter because that's what made sense at the time. And I didn't for this one. For Echo Point Nova, I did not go with a publisher for various reasons, and I talked to them, and just nothing felt right. Yeah, so I guess it's just like how on a broader sense, how I work on these things is just like how I work on the small gameplay elements, where it's just like take opportunities as they come. Every month, check in, think about what do I want to do next. Yeah.
What factors led you to select Unreal Engine for your development process?
I do use Unreal Engine, and the reason I use Unreal Engine is mostly because as a kid, one of my first game development experiences was messing around making maps for Unreal Tournament. Yeah. And I loved Unreal Tournament. So when I was deciding on engines to use, it just felt natural to just go with Unreal. I never really strongly considered anything else. I mean, I dabbled a bit in Unity forever ago. Didn't go anywhere. And I dabbled in OpenMW, which is an open source version of Morrowind, which was interesting. But when it came time, we're like, okay, I actually want to work on something with commercial potential. Like Unreal Engine was just like a no-brainer for me.
Regarding balancing your life with game development, do you feel there were any changes before and after Severed Steel? How do you handle video game development alongside other aspects of your life?
Yeah, it's something I haven't quite figured out yet. I definitely neglect my life for the good of game development, and I just don't see any other way to do it. It's really hard to predict a game development timeline because you never know when you're going to hit a bug that will take you weeks to fix. Like you just can't schedule for that. You never know when like a playtest is going to reveal serious problems in the game design that you have to dive in and go back and fix and change how you've done things. And so there's always this like moving target of how long the development's going to take. And I'm an independent developer. My only income streams are from my games, so like I can't just kind of like launch it when it's ready and like take time off to go on trips and do stuff. So I just work as hard as I can, as much as I can, try to like, when it gets to the point where like, okay, like I'm really neglecting my friends and family, I'll make some time for them. And then it's right back to the games. After Echo Point Nova, I hope to have more balance because I'll have the income of 2 games coming in. Hopefully I can take a breather and catch up on all these things in life that I've been neglecting. But right now, especially right now where I'm trying to launch Echo Point Nova by the end of the summer, it's just like go time. Like there's minimal work-life balance. Yeah.
For an indie developer, working alone means you're accountable for any game issues. In a company, there's always someone to step in. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's like it's not like working for like a company where you can take a 2-week vacation and like there's an institution that's still ticking along. It's just you in the game. Although thankfully for Echo Point Nova, I do have a small team that's really like, it is good to know like whatever, for some reason I have to take a day to do something, like the levels are still being worked on in the background. It helps a lot. So it's not like the whole world is on my shoulders. But I'm ultimately the one, like I'm the only one who's working in the engine. Everything goes through me. So like, yeah, if I'm not working on it every day, then things slow down. Yeah.
You concentrate heavily on gameplay, world building, and shooting. How do you tackle the specific elements of art, sound design, and color palette to ensure they all fit together cohesively?
Yeah, that's just something that takes time, and it takes a lot of iteration. It's kind of funny. Like for example, like visual design, there's so many different variables that go into it. Like you have you have the shape of the world. Like what are all the objects shaped like? And then it's like, how do you arrange the objects in the scene? And then every object has a texture on it. And how that texture looks changes completely on like, how do you light it? What process filters do you have? What color filters do you have? And like objects aren't just like color textures. There's also like, there's the normal map, which is like the direction of each pixel on the texture. And there's stuff like metallicness, roughness, like all these different things that change how a texture looks. And it's just like constantly like over months and months and years, like adjusting each of those things just in a loop, and it just keeps on going and going, and it looks better and better. And at some point, eventually you look at it and you're like, okay, this actually looks good. It's just a long process with a lot like constant tweaking. There's no real like rhyme or reason to it, for me at least. And again, it's one of those things where like I'm sure the way other people work is they have a vision in their head and they strive to build that vision. But for me, it's just like, look at it, what looks good, what looks bad, tweak it. Okay, it looks good now. And then like a month goes by and you're like, I don't think this actually looks good. Keep tweaking it. Okay, I like it now. So it's just constant tweaking for months and months until eventually, hopefully, it looks like something that people enjoy.
The music for Severed Steel and Echo Point Nova has a very distinct style. Floating Door is the artist behind both soundtracks. How does your collaboration work? Do you show the gameplay first, and then the musician composes the music? How does that process unfold?
Yeah, it's a lot of freedom. I mean, I kind of, like for Severed Steel, I kind of said like, kind of like Hotline Miami was the vibe. Kind of like electronic music, but very like a very pounding rhythm that goes with the action. And sometimes I'll try to give him specific suggestions, but that rarely works out. It seems to work best when he kind of does his own thing. And he generally makes more tracks than end up being used, so I kind of have like a pool to pick through that I think fits the best. And then we just have some left over in the end, which like in Severed Steel, like I didn't use all the tracks in the initial launch, but as time went on, we added more levels. I'd reach back in and implement some of the tracks we didn't use before. And that's sort of made for Echo Point Nova 2, where Floating Door, he kind of knows how the game looks and how the game plays, and he just does his own thing, makes music, sends me stuff, some stuff I use, some stuff I don't use. So yeah, it's not really I guess that's our workflow. It's pretty chaotic, but it's worked out.
Well, Severed Steel is a single-player experience. Echo Point Nova includes multiplayer and co-op modes. What prompted the shift in gameplay style? Was the idea of a multiplayer game always in your plans, or did it come about specifically for this project?
Yeah, so I'm a single-player gamer. I used to play, in my youth, I was really into like Call of Duty and Battlefield Online. But now I always gravitate towards single player. Multiplayer is not really on my radar. But co-op is fun. I've always liked playing co-op with friends. And sometimes when I hang out with friends, we want to play a co-op game. It's hard. Sometimes we're just like, we can't think of anything. We feel like we played everything. So I did feel like I wish there were more co-op games out there, and that was part of the reason I did it. And also just from a personal development standpoint, I wanted to see what it was like to make a networked game, just as like a challenge to myself. So yeah, between those two things, I'm like, okay, I'll have co-op in this game. It's been a challenge. You kind of have to. It's hard, you have to balancing a game for single player is hard enough, and getting it performing well is hard enough, and then now you have to also balance it for co-op, and you have. You don't have to worry about, typically when you work on a game, you worry about, graphics card and CPU performance. Now I also have to worry about network performance. Like you're sending bits over the network, and you don't want to send too many or it starts getting laggy, and no one likes that. So it's been very challenging. And I'm very curious to see, when the game does launch, like how many people play single player and how many people play co-op? Like, what's the more popular game mode? I have no idea. I don't even know for the demo what's more popular. I'm assuming it's single player, but we'll see. We'll see what happens for the full game.
What's the narrative of your upcoming game, Echo Point Nova?
Yeah. So yeah, the story in this case is you're a researcher who travels around. You have a spaceship. You travel around exploring anomalies in the galaxy, finding interesting things to research. And on this particular planet, you get shot down. You find out there's some sort of evil mercenary force doing research, and the plot's pretty much like, well, whatever they're after, you want to figure out first. As far as how I come up with the ideas, gameplay is first, and like level design is first. And then once that's in place, it's like, okay, well, what's a story that like justifies all of this? So like the floating islands came way before I had any explanation about why there were floating islands, and all like the enemies and combat all came before who the enemies were and why they were there. Why do you have a hoverboard? Why do you have a pickaxe? I'll figure that out. I figure that out after I add the pickaxe, after I add the hoverboard. So that's how that works.
Now that you're an experienced game developer, how do you market your games? Do you have any strategies or platforms that you particularly enjoy using?
Yeah, so I'm using a lot of the same channels we use for Severed Steel. So Twitter, I have a TikTok account for Severed Steel that I post Echo Point Nova clips on. And as I get closer to launch, there's a lot of YouTubers who covered Severed Steel, and I'll loop them in, send them keys before launch. A lot of it is just, Steam is where all the action happens. So have a demo on Steam, have nice art on Steam, have a nice store page. Really, the next thing for me, for marketing, is to get a launch trailer together that's like really professionally made, super eye-catching. Reach out to whoever, like IGN, like pretty much whoever was interested in Severed Steel, whoever covered Severed Steel, leverage that to get the word of Echo Point Nova out. Yeah, and I mean, right now it's mostly I just post clips on Twitter, post clips on TikTok. Sometimes, they go semi-viral, and that's nice. Sometimes they don't. It's always like, it's always a roll of the dice about whether a clip takes off or whether it doesn't. I haven't figured that out. I just go for volume. Just try to post every few days, something like that. Hopefully some catch on. Yeah, that's my marketing strategy, as it were.
Yeah, so everything is organic, nothing paid.
No, have I paid? For Echo Point Nova, I don't think I've paid for anything. Closer to launch, I might do sponsored videos if it seems like, as long as it's transparent and not like shady. People got to eat, so I might.
Yeah.
But I don't think I paid for anything Echo Point Nova yet. But yeah. I may have, and I've forgotten about it.
People often ask if creating video games is expensive. What is your perspective on the costs of developing a game as an independent developer? Do you think it's a profitable venture and you can earn a living from it?
I think the way I work, where like I don't start off with like a super concrete vision that I have to implement. I kind of take things as I go. I can keep it relatively cheap because I'm very willing to work around financial limits. Like I don't always need to pay a huge amount of money for the exact art I want, or for the exact music I want, or for the exact sounds I want, because I'm pretty flexible about using what I can source from like libraries and stuff. I mean, a couple things that help me make it work is, one is like this is my full-time job, and time is money, so I'm able to, like, instead of spending money, I just throw myself at it for hours instead of paying someone else for hours. What also helps is I'll often work with profit shares. So if someone wants to help me with the project, I'll give them some percentage of the final sales. So maybe in the long term, it costs me money, but in the short term, it's not like I'm shelling things out of my bank account. So I think I've the way I work is not particularly expensive, but if I had a different personality type or had a different vision, it could get very expensive.
How do you respond to feedback, both the praise and the criticism, along with player support?
Yeah, feedback is very valuable. It's not all equally valuable. I try to read all the feedback I can. Like I think I read all the Steam reviews. I mean, yeah, I mean, sometimes feedback is good and it's something you can fix. I agree with and I fix. Like I just had a playtest for Echo Point Nova yesterday, where I kind of sense a certain like the player felt like they needed more reward for finishing like the big where you scan the anomaly and you do the fight. They felt like they needed more reward after it, and they didn't even like say that. I just kind of read in their body language. This is an in-person test. I could read in their body language that like they weren't feeling the satisfaction that I wanted the player to feel. So all this morning I've been like going back to all the fights and just trying to think about how I can add more of a juicy feeling of reward after it. So that's like good feedback. But then sometimes like someone just says like, I hate how this game looks. And it's like, well, I'm sorry for you, but most people seem to like it. So it's going to be what it's going to be. Yeah. Yeah. So I just take as much feedback as I can. I don't listen to all of it. Some I do listen to. It is what it is,
I was talking to Jose Castañeira, creator of Exophobia, the other day about the reviews people leave. We noted that while it's valid for players to leave negative reviews after a few hours, those who play for just 5 minutes and say the game is bad might not fully grasp it. Do you get what I mean?
But like, yeah, it's one of those things that like, you could say that like their opinion doesn't count if they only played for 5 minutes. But at the same time, like, it's really important. Like if players hate it after 5 minutes and they're going to return the game, or give it a bad review. Like, that's reality. And I have to cater to, like, if there's enough of those players, that's a problem. So it's just like, the customer's not always right, but like, if enough customers are all saying the same thing and you want to be financially successful, like, they're right, and you have to kind of go with it. And I do think that it is kind of silly that, like, the first like 20 minutes of a game are so important, especially when gamers have so much choice now. It's so silly how many games come out every day.
Yeah.
And every gamer has a backlog that they're never going to complete. And you're competing against that. Like, every person who buys Severed Steel and who will buy Point Nova probably has 10 games that they have in their library that they already own that they want to play.
Yeah.
So you're fighting against that. So you need to really they got to love the game in the first 20 minutes. That's just how it is. So you got to, like, it sucks, and you can say it's not fair, and it's not artistically valid for them to think that, but it is what it is, and you gotta live with that.
Are you playing any video games right now, or is there one you're particularly looking forward to?
Yeah, well, so the next game that's coming out that I'm really curious about, I love the Stalker series. I'm very interested in how Stalker 2 is. I'm happy it was delayed because it was going to come out like September, which is when I'm kind of hoping to do Echo Point Nova. Not 100% sure yet. And I don't know, I'm happy that was pushed back for two reasons. One, I don't have to compete with it. Not that we're really competitors, but still, you don't want big titles launching too close to you. Yeah. But two is hopefully it'll launch after North Echo Point Nova, so I'll have time to sink my teeth into it. Yeah, that's sweet. And I have to shout out, the last game I played that I love was Sulaco, another indie first-person shooter. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you played that? So good. It's so good. Like, typically when like I'm so busy now, I don't really have a hell of a lot of time to play games, so I'll typically like play a game for half an hour, get the feel for it, and then move on. But Sulaco, I had to beat it. It was so engaging. Yeah. Really a special game. Yeah. So I played it on launch. Yeah. And I'm excited I want to do another playthrough, just to see how they did a lot of quality of life improvements.
Yeah, so I want to get early access. So we have a lot more to expect.
There's a lot more. Yeah, there's the two more whole chapters, I think, at least, and all sorts of bonus content. So I'm excited to revisit that.
Do you have any side projects that you've always dreamed of making or are currently involved in?
Oh, geez. Yeah, my next self-improvement journey. I don't know. I want to travel more. I haven't traveled that much. I'd like to travel more. I've always wanted to get into wood carving. It's always been something I wanted to learn. I have all this. My girlfriend gave me a bunch of supplies for it. I haven't been able to use it because I've just been so focused on gaming. Yeah, so those are things on my horizon. I don't know when I'll ever have time for it. One day. Hopefully I got a lot of years left.
We're eagerly anticipating your next project. So, without spoiling too much, can you share what stage your game is at right now?
It's currently going QA testing. You can play through the whole game. It's got credits and all that. Some of the areas are unpolished. And like, I'm still figuring out like, where's the best... I'm still moving, like I'm always moving the loot around. Like, where's the best place to put this pickup? Where's the best place to put this power up? Still getting the difficulty curve adjusted. So it's like, it's that like almost done, but it's a question mark. Like, how many bugs does QA find? Are they going to find any bugs that are a nightmare to fix, or is it all going to be smooth? So it's like, it's really close, but there's just some like last few things that I'm not sure how long it's going to take to get just right.
With all the knowledge you have today, what advice would you give to your past self if you could go back in time?
See, that's a funny question. I don't know if I'd want to poke that. Like, it worked out fine. Like, I don't know if I'd want to go back and like re-roll it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably tell myself to buy NVIDIA stock or something like that.
Yeah. Or Bitcoin, yeah.
Yeah, or Bitcoin. Yeah, it's like, you don't have to work so hard, man. Like,
sleep a little, please.
Yeah. But for game development, I wouldn't poke it because it's worked out pretty well, and I wouldn't want to risk knocking myself off that track.
Is there any significant wisdom you've acquired over the years in your journey as an indie developer?
Man, yeah, it's some like what would I tell an indie dev? I mean, work on it it's my generic advice, and people ask, like, what's your advice? Is like, do everything in your power to work on it every day. Because that makes all the difference in the long term. But if someone's like already working on their game every day, I'd say like the sooner you can get a build, you can build it, distribute it to people to play it, the better. And really like listen to their feedback, watch them play, because it's all like, if it's just on your computer, it's like it might as well not exist. Like it's not a real thing until people who aren't your friends are playing it. Like strangers are playing it and loving it or hating it. So yeah, the sooner you can get a product into people's hands, the better.
So Matt, before we finish this interview, is there anything you want to share with your fans and or followers?
Oh, I mean, geez, thank you for playing and buying it. That's the only thing that matters in the end, is if people play it. Like if I launched Severed Steel and no one played it, like what's the point, you know? And and like I said earlier, like there's so many games to play. It's a miracle. Whenever someone looks at their Steam library of 200 games and they click on Severed Steel, click on Echo Point Nova, like that is a miracle. And I try my best to never take that for granted. So just thank you for choosing my games. Thank you for buying them. Thank you for reviewing them. Anything, and just any engagement you give my games, it's just like, it's a blessing. So just thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt, for taking the time to talk with us today. We really appreciate it. Everyone make sure to follow Matt on social media, purchase Severed Steel, and wishlist Echo Point Nova on Steam. The demo is fantastic. Thanks again, Matt, and to anyone who is listening or watching the show, please support the channel. My name is Juan Jose, and see you soon.